My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 32 years old, and 47 days ago, my mother-in-law whispered in my ear that I'd be gone soon, sweetheart, while I lay in a hospital bed, barely able to keep my eyes open. What I did next? Well, it didn't just change everything. It destroyed a family's darkest secret and exposed a conspiracy that almost killed me. Before I tell you what I did, you need to know why I had absolutely no choice. Because when you're being slowly poisoned by the people who promise to love you, and everyone thinks you're just crazy, you either fight back or you die. I met David 7 years ago at a charity fundraiser in Boston. He was charming, successful, a pediatric surgeon with kind eyes and gentle hands. His mother, Patricia, seemed like the perfect future mother-in-law. Elegant, well-spoken, involved in her son's life, but not overbearing. At least, that's what I thought. For the first 2 years of our marriage, things were beautiful. We had a gorgeous home in the suburbs. We traveled, we laughed, we planned for children. Patricia would come over for Sunday dinners, and she'd hold my hand across the table and tell me how grateful she was that her son had found someone like me. "You're the daughter I never had," she'd say, her eyes glistening with what I thought were tears of joy. But then, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Little comments. "Oh, you're wearing that dress? I suppose it's fine for your body type." Or, "David mentioned you forgot to pick up his dry cleaning again. He works so hard, Sarah. The least you could do is handle the small things." I brushed it off. I told myself she was just old-fashioned, that she meant well, that I was being too sensitive. David would laugh it off too. "That's just Mom," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But deep down, I started to feel this gnawing sense of dread whenever I knew she was coming over. And I blamed myself. I thought I was the problem. I thought if I just tried harder, did better, smiled more, maybe she'd go back to loving me the way she used to. And looking back now, all the signs were there. I just didn't see them until it was almost too late. It started with the headaches. 6 months ago, I began waking up with these splitting migraines that would last for hours. Then came the nausea, the dizziness, the weakness in my limbs that made it hard to even stand sometimes. I went to doctor after doctor, and they all said the same thing. Stress, anxiety, maybe early onset migraines, possibly fibromyalgia. They threw prescriptions at me. Pills for pain, pills for nausea, pills to help me sleep, because by then I couldn't sleep anymore. Every night I'd lie awake, my heart racing, my body trembling, feeling like something was terribly, horribly wrong, but unable to explain what. David grew distant. He'd come home late from the hospital, barely look at me, eat the dinner Patricia had started bringing over, because I was too sick to cook anymore, you see, and then disappear into his study. Patricia, on the other hand, became more present. She'd show up every single day with homemade soups, teas, smoothies. "You need to keep your strength up, sweetheart," she'd coo, stroking my hair while I lay on the couch, too weak to move. "Drink this. It'll help." And I did, because I was desperate, because I wanted to get better, because I trusted her. But I only got sicker, weaker. My hands started shaking so badly I couldn't hold a coffee cup. My vision would blur. Some days, I couldn't remember simple words, or where I'd put my keys, or whether I'd already taken my medication. David started looking at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not quite disgust, but something close to it. Disappointment, maybe. Like I'd become this burden he hadn't signed up for. And Patricia, she'd whisper to him in the kitchen when she thought I couldn't hear. She's not well, David. Mentally, I mean. You need to consider options. For your own safety. Options. What the hell did that mean? But I was too foggy, too exhausted to fight back, too sick to defend myself. And that's exactly what they wanted. 3 weeks ago, I collapsed in the bathroom, just completely blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, hooked up to IVs, with David and Patricia standing over my bed, looking, I don't even know how to describe it, concerned, maybe, but there was something else in their eyes, something cold, something calculating. The doctors ran tests, blood work, CT scans, MRIs. They couldn't find anything definitive, but my potassium levels were dangerously low. My liver enzymes were elevated, and there were traces of something in my system they couldn't quite identify. It's consistent with chronic malnutrition or possibly a rare autoimmune disorder, the doctor said, frowning at my chart. But we'll need to run more tests. Patricia squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. We'll take care of you, sweetheart, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Don't you worry about a thing. And that night, after David left to get coffee, she leaned down close to my ear, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, mixed with something bitter and medicinal, and she whispered, You'll be gone soon, sweetheart, and everything will go back to the way it should be. My blood turned to ice. Gone? What did she mean? Gone. I tried to speak, tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. She patted my cheek, smiled that perfect, practiced smile, and walked out of the room like she'd just told me to have sweet dreams. I lay there in that hospital bed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. And for the first time in months, my mind cleared, like someone had ripped away a veil, and I understood. Oh God, I understood. She was killing me. They were killing me. And they were going to get away with it. And when I realized what they'd been doing to me, something inside me snapped. I need you to understand something. For 6 months, I'd been drinking the teas Patricia made me, eating the soup she brought over, taking the herbal supplements she insisted would help with my fatigue. She'd watch me consume every drop, every bite, with those hawk eyes of hers. Finish it all, Sarah. You need your nutrients. And I did, because I thought she loved me, because I thought she was helping me. But she wasn't. She was poisoning me, slowly, methodically, carefully, just enough to make me sick, but not enough to kill me outright. Not enough to raise immediate red flags, just enough to make everyone, including me, think I was losing my mind. And David, my husband, the man who'd promised to love me in sickness and in health, he knew. He had to know. The way he'd grown cold toward me, the way he'd stopped sleeping in our bed, the way he'd started talking about having me evaluated by a psychiatrist, the way he'd look at his mother with this silent understanding that made my skin crawl. They had a plan. I was the obstacle, and they were removing me. But why? That's what I couldn't figure out at first. Why would they want me dead? We didn't have life insurance policies on each other. I didn't come from money. I wasn't standing in the way of some inheritance. None of it made sense until I started digging into David's phone records. Yes, I'd guessed his passcode months ago during happier times, and he'd never changed it. And that's when I found the texts. Hundreds of them. Between David and someone named R. They started about 8 months ago, right before I got sick. Can't wait to finally be with you properly. Soon, my love. Soon she'll be gone, and we can start our life together. Mother says it's almost time. Just a few more months. R. Rebecca. Rebecca Chen, the beautiful surgical nurse at David's hospital. The woman he'd been having an affair with for almost a year. The woman who wanted to be Mrs. David Mitchell. And Patricia, devoted mother that she was, had decided to help her son get rid of his inconvenient wife so he could marry the woman he really loved, so he could have the life he really wanted. And if I died of some mysterious illness, well, these things happen. So tragic, so young. David would be the grieving widower, Patricia, the devastated mother-in-law, and Rebecca would wait a respectable amount of time before swooping in to console him. Perfect, clean, untraceable, except they didn't count on me figuring it out, and they sure as hell didn't count on me fighting back. But nothing prepared me for what I discovered next, because it involved a child, buried deep in David's email, in a folder marked legal. I found documents, custody agreements, paternity tests. Rebecca already had David's baby, a son, 8 months old, born while I was still healthy, still naive, still believing my husband loved me. They'd been planning this for over a year. Get Rebecca pregnant, get rid of me, marry Rebecca, become one big happy family. And Patricia was orchestrating the whole thing because she'd already decided Rebecca was a better match for her precious son. More Asian, more traditional, more likely to give her the grandchildren she wanted with the proper genetics she preferred. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. But I couldn't do either because I was still in that hospital bed, still weak, still being monitored. So instead, I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. I pretended. I played along. When David came back with coffee, I smiled weakly and told him I loved him. When Patricia visited the next morning with another one of her poisonous smoothies, I thanked her profusely and told her I didn't know what I'd do without her. And when she left the room, I poured that smoothie into the potted plant by my bed and saved the container. In that moment, I came up with a plan so crazy. The old me would have thought I'd lost my mind. I needed proof. Real, undeniable forensic proof. So I called my college roommate, Melissa, the one person in my life Patricia hadn't managed to isolate me from yet. Probably because Melissa lived in California and we only talked every few months. Melissa was a toxicologist at a private lab. I told her everything. She thought I was paranoid at first, that the illness was making me delusional. But when I sent her photos of the texts I'd found, her tone changed. Save everything you can, she said. Every drink, every food item, anything she gives you. Don't consume any of it. And get yourself discharged as soon as possible. If they're willing to poison you slowly, they might get impatient and try something faster in the hospital, where they can blame it on medical complications. Terror flooded through me, but it was mixed with something else, something hot and fierce and powerful. Rage. Pure, crystalline rage. They'd stolen 6 months of my life. They'd made me think I was dying, made me think I was crazy, isolated me from friends, destroyed my career. I'd had to quit my job as a graphic designer because I was too sick to work. And all for what? So David could play house with his mistress and his secret baby? So Patricia could have the daughter-in-law she really wanted? I got myself discharged against medical advice 2 days later. David protested, but I insisted. I want to recover at home, I told him, making my voice small and weak. Please, I just want to be in my own bed. He relented, probably because having me die at home was even more convenient than having me die in a hospital. Patricia was thrilled. I'll take care of everything, she promised. You just rest. And I nodded and smiled and thanked her, while inside, I was already plotting her destruction. For the next week, I collected evidence. Every tea, every soup, every smoothie, every supplement went into sealed containers and straight into a box I hid in the garage. I set up a hidden camera in the kitchen, one of those nanny cams that looks like a phone charger, so I could record Patricia preparing my food. And oh, what that camera captured. Her, in my kitchen, pulling a small vial from her purse. Her, adding drops of clear liquid to my tea while humming softly to herself. Her, stirring it carefully, making sure it dissolved completely. Her, bringing it to me with that saccharine smile and watching to make sure I drank every drop. Except I didn't. I'd perfected the art of pretending to sip while barely swallowing, then spitting it into tissues when she wasn't looking or dumping it into that same dying plant. And miracle of miracles, I started to feel better. My head cleared. My hands stopped shaking. My strength began returning. But I made sure they didn't notice. I continued to act weak, continued to stumble, continued to sleep most of the day. Because I needed them to think their plan was working. I needed them to get comfortable, confident, careless. And that's when I walked into the real danger zone. I decided to confront Patricia, but not alone, not without backup, not without making damn sure that if something happened to me, the truth would come out. I invited Patricia over for tea, my tea this time. I told her I wanted to talk about my will, that I was scared about dying, and wanted to make sure David would be taken care of. Her eyes lit up. This was it, she thought. The end game. Sarah finally accepting her fate. She arrived wearing a cream-colored suit, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, looking every inch the refined, grieving mother-in-law-to-be. She settled into my living room couch with practiced elegance, accepting the cup of chamomile tea I offered her. Completely safe, I might add. I'm not a murderer, and smiled at me with what I can only describe as predatory satisfaction. I'm so glad you're being realistic about this, Sarah, she said, sipping her tea. It's important to get your affairs in order. For David's sake. I nodded, my heart hammering. I've been thinking a lot about everything, I said carefully. About how sick I've been. About how much you've helped me. About how dedicated you've been to taking care of me. She preened. Actually, preened. Of course, sweetheart. Your family. I leaned forward. That's why I wanted to ask you something. What exactly have you been putting in my food? The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Her smile froze. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. What's in the vial, Patricia? The one you carry in your Chanel purse. The one you've been adding to everything you feed me for the past 6 months. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. You're delusional, she hissed. The illness has affected your mind. David was right. You need psychiatric help. Really? I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled out my laptop. Because I have videos, Patricia. Hours of footage of you poisoning me in my own kitchen. I have the containers with residue that my friend at the toxicology lab has already tested. Do you want to know what she found? Antifreeze, ethylene glycol, to be specific. Small doses over time. Just enough to cause organ damage, neurological symptoms, and eventually, death. Just enough to look like a mysterious illness. She shot to her feet, her teacup clattering to the floor. You can't prove anything. You're sick. You're mentally unstable. No one will believe you. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. David's affair with Rebecca Chen, the baby, the texts, the custody documents, the emails between you and David discussing how to handle me. I have all of it, Patricia. Every single piece. And that's when she raised her hand to hit me. Her palm was inches from my face, her eyes wild with rage and fear, her mask completely shattered. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. Because the old Sarah, weak, trusting, desperate to be loved, was gone. The woman standing in front of her had been forged in betrayal, in poison, and she was done being a victim. I caught her wrist mid-air. Don't, I said quietly, because if you touch me, I'm calling the police right now instead of giving you the option I'm about to offer. She wrenched her arm away, breathing hard, looking around my living room like a trapped animal. What option? She spat. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice cold and clear. You're going to transfer $500,000 into an account I've set up, compensation for what you've done to me. You're going to sign a confession that my lawyer has prepared, and you're going to disappear from my life forever. No contact, no visits, no phone calls, nothing. And if I refuse? She asked, but her voice wavered. Then I go to the police with everything. The videos, the toxicology reports, the evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, Patricia. At your age, you'll die there. And David, he'll lose his medical license, his career, his reputation. He'll go to prison too. And that baby he had with Rebecca, he'll grow up knowing his father tried to murder someone. Is that really the legacy you want for your precious son? She stood there, trembling with rage and humiliation and fear, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, just cold, hard satisfaction. You have 24 hours to make the transfer and sign the documents, I continued. My lawyer will be in touch with the details. And Patricia, if anything happens to me, if I so much as catch a cold, everything goes public automatically. I've set up a dead man's switch. Do you understand? She didn't answer. She just grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. But before she left, she turned back, and the look in her eyes was pure venom. You'll regret this, she said. David will never forgive you. You'll be alone. I laughed, actually laughed. I'd rather be alone than dead, Patricia. Now get out of my house. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, his family got involved. Because, of course, Patricia didn't just accept defeat. Of course she didn't slink away quietly. No, she did what narcissists do best. She played the victim and rallied her troops. Within hours of leaving my house, she'd called her entire extended family, painting me as the villain. I was mentally ill, she told them. Dangerous, delusional. I'd threatened her. attacked her, tried to extort money from her with fabricated evidence. Poor David was trapped with a psychotic wife who'd made up insane stories about being poisoned. David's sister, Monica, started blowing up my phone with hateful texts. His brother, James, showed up at my door, demanding I recant my lies and apologize to their mother. David himself finally came home from wherever he'd been hiding, probably with Rebecca, and the mask was completely off. No more pretending to care, no more fake concern, just cold, calculated fury that I dared to expose him. "You're going to drop this," he said, his voice low and threatening. "You're going to tell everyone you made it all up because you were sick and confused. You're going to sign divorce papers and leave quietly with nothing, or I will destroy you. I have friends at the police department. I have colleagues who'll testify that you've been erratic and unstable. I will have you committed, Sarah. Do you understand me? I will lock you up in a psychiatric facility and throw away the key." For a moment, just a moment, the old fear tried to creep back in. He was a respected surgeon. His family had money and connections. I was alone, still recovering, with no job and few allies. Maybe I couldn't win this. Maybe I should just take the divorce and run. But then I remembered that whisper in the hospital. "You'll be gone soon, sweetheart." I remembered the smug satisfaction on Patricia's face as she poisoned me. I remembered the texts about the baby, about getting rid of me, about starting a new life, like I was nothing more than an inconvenient piece of trash to be disposed of. And I stood my ground. "Try it," I said. "Go ahead and try. Because the moment you do, everything goes public. Every text, every video, every piece of evidence. I'll send it to the medical board, to the police, to the local news, to social media. Your career will be over before you can say malpractice. So please, David, please try to have me committed. I'm begging you." He didn't. Instead, they tried something worse. They tried to make me look like the aggressor, like I was the one who'd been abusing David, emotionally manipulating him, threatening his family. Patricia filed for a restraining order against me, claiming I'd assaulted her in my home. David started documenting everything, taking photos of himself looking stressed, recording our conversations without my knowledge, building a case that I was the dangerous one. But they didn't know I was already one step ahead, because while they were busy trying to frame me, I'd been meeting with Detective Rachel Torres, a woman from the police department's domestic violence unit, who actually gave a damn about the truth. I'd shown her everything. The videos, the toxicology reports, the texts, the medical records showing my sudden decline and equally sudden recovery once I stopped consuming Patricia's food. She'd listened, actually listened, and she'd believed me. "This is attempted murder," she'd said, her face grave, "and conspiracy to commit murder. But I need you to understand something, Sarah. People like David and Patricia, they're good at playing the system. They're educated, wealthy, respectable. If we're going to take them down, we need airtight evidence. We need them to make a mistake." "They already have," I told her. "And they're about to make an even bigger one, because Patricia, in her desperation to stop me, had reached out to the one person who could destroy her completely. Her own sister, Karen. Patricia had confided in Karen about the poisoning months ago, probably looking for validation or support, or just someone to share her twisted plan with. And Karen, guilt-ridden and terrified, had kept that secret until now. Until I found her through social media and reached out, explaining what Patricia had done to me. Karen had sobbed over the phone. "I should have said something," she kept repeating. "I should have stopped her. She said you were making David miserable, that you were trying to trap him, that getting rid of you was the only way. I thought she was just venting. I didn't think she'd actually..." But she had. And now Karen was willing to testify, to provide written statements, to confirm that Patricia had told her about the poisoning, had shown her the vial, had detailed her plan to slowly kill me and make it look natural. With Karen's testimony added to everything else, we had them. We had them dead to rights. All we needed was the final confrontation, the moment where they couldn't deny, couldn't deflect, couldn't lie their way out. And Detective Torres helped me set it up. We arranged a mediation meeting at a lawyer's office, neutral ground, supposedly to discuss the divorce settlement and restraining orders. David, Patricia, their lawyer, me, my lawyer, and a mediator. What they didn't know was that Detective Torres and 2 other officers were in the room next door, listening to everything through a hidden microphone I was wearing. What they didn't know was that this wasn't a mediation. It was a trap. The meeting started civil enough. Their lawyer laid out demands. I would leave the marriage with nothing, sign a non-disclosure agreement, admit to filing false police reports, and commit myself to psychiatric evaluation. In exchange, they wouldn't press charges against me for extortion and harassment. I listened to all of it, my face neutral, while my heart raced. Before I respond, I said calmly, "I just want to understand something. Patricia, can you explain why my toxicology reports show ethylene glycol poisoning that coincides exactly with the period when you were bringing me food every day?" The room went silent. Patricia's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "My client doesn't have to answer. It's a simple question," I interrupted. "Were you or were you not adding antifreeze to my food and drinks for 6 months?" Patricia's face turned purple. "You're insane. This is exactly what I've been talking about. She's delusional. She needs help." "Then explain the videos," I said, pulling out my phone. "Explain this." I played the footage. Clear as day. Patricia in my kitchen. Patricia with the vial. Patricia adding drops to my tea. Patricia stirring carefully. Patricia's face on screen was unmistakable. The timestamp was clear. The audio caught her humming to herself. Completely casual, like she was adding sugar instead of poison. David went white. His lawyer stood up. "This meeting is over. We're leaving." "Sit down," Detective Torres said, walking into the room with her badge held high. "Nobody's leaving. Patricia Mitchell, David Mitchell, you're both under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and assault with a deadly weapon." The next few minutes were chaos. Patricia started screaming that this was entrapment, that I'd set them up, that none of it was real. David just sat there, frozen, his career and life crumbling in real time. Their lawyer was frantically trying to tell them not to say anything, to wait for a criminal defense attorney, but Patricia couldn't stop herself. She was ruining his life. Patricia shrieked as the handcuffs went on. She was holding him back. He has a son now, a real son, with a woman who actually deserves him. I was helping my child. What was I supposed to do? Just let her destroy everything we'd worked for. And there it was. Full confession. On tape. With witnesses. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. David finally found his voice. "Mom, shut up. For God's sake, shut up." But it was too late. It was all too late. And that's when the real victim walked into the room. Rebecca Chen, holding her 8-month-old baby, with tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I swear to God, I didn't know what they were doing. David told me you two were separated, that you'd left him, that the divorce was almost final. I didn't know you were sick. I didn't know she was—" She couldn't finish. The baby started crying, and she rocked him automatically, her eyes locked on David with a mixture of horror and betrayal. "You told me she was gone," Rebecca said. "You said she'd moved out. You said we could be together soon. You never said your mother was—" Detective Torres stepped forward. "Ms. Chen, we're going to need a statement from you as well." Rebecca nodded, still staring at David like she'd never seen him before. "He used me," she whispered. "He used our son. We were just—" "What? A replacement? The excuse to get rid of her?" David couldn't even look at her, or at me, or at anyone. He just stared at his hands in those handcuffs, while his mother continued to scream about injustice and conspiracy and lies. They were both charged with attempted first-degree murder. Patricia's bail was set at $1 million. David's at $750,000. His medical license was immediately suspended pending investigation. The hospital launched their own inquiry. The media had a field day. Prominent surgeon and mother accused of poisoning wife in murder-for-hire plot. Our story was everywhere. My face was everywhere. But this time, I wasn't the sick, weak victim. I was the survivor, the woman who'd outsmarted her would-be killers and brought them to justice. The trial took 8 months. 8 long, grueling months of testimony and cross-examinations, and watching David and Patricia try to paint themselves as the real victims. But the evidence was overwhelming. The toxicology reports, the videos, Karen's testimony, Rebecca's statement about the affair and the baby, and David's lies, the texts, the medical records showing my dramatic decline and recovery, the forensic analysis of the vial found in Patricia's possession, which contained pure ethylene glycol. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Patricia got 25 years to life. David got 18 years. They'll both be old when they get out. If they get out. Patricia's perfect life, her social standing, her country club memberships, her charity galas, all gone. David's career, his reputation, his future, destroyed. And me, I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting. The aftermath was its own kind of battle. The divorce was finalized while David was awaiting trial. I got the house, half of his assets that hadn't been seized for legal fees, and a settlement from his medical malpractice insurance, because apparently poisoning your spouse violates professional ethics codes. Who knew? I sold the house. I couldn't stay there, couldn't walk through those rooms where I'd been systematically poisoned without feeling sick. Too many ghosts, too many memories of the woman I used to be, the trusting, naive woman who believed that love and family meant safety. I moved across the country to Seattle, started over, started therapy, real therapy, with a trauma specialist who helped me understand that none of this was my fault, that I didn't cause this by being weak or trusting or not seeing the signs, that monsters often wear the faces of people we love, that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about rebuilding yourself after someone's tried to destroy you. I found a new job, freelancing as a designer for tech startups. I adopted a dog, a three-legged rescue named Phoenix, because the symbolism was too perfect to resist. I made new friends who knew my story, but didn't define me by it. Slowly, painfully, I learned to trust again, to eat food without analyzing it for poison, to drink tea without paranoia, to exist in my body without constantly bracing for attack. Some days are harder than others. Some days I still wake up with my heart racing, convinced I'm back in that hospital bed with Patricia whispering in my ear. Some days I can't believe I survived it all. But most days I'm grateful. Grateful for Melissa, who believed me when it mattered most. Grateful for Detective Torres, who actually listened to a victim instead of dismissing her as crazy. Grateful for Karen, who found the courage to tell the truth. Grateful for Rebecca, who, believe it or not, I've stayed in touch with. She's a victim too, in her own way. She's raising that baby alone now, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, trying to build a life out of the rubble David left behind. We talk sometimes, not often, but sometimes. 2 women who survived the same man's lies. And I'm grateful for my own stubborn refusal to die quietly, for the rage that kept me sharp when the poison tried to make me foggy, for the part of me that said, no, not like this, not for them. I think about the woman I was 2 years ago, planning her future with a man who was planning her death. I grieve for her sometimes, for her innocence, for her belief in fairness and love and happily ever after. But I don't miss her, because the woman I am now, she's stronger, she's smarter, she's a survivor in the truest sense of the word. She knows that pretty faces can hide ugly souls. That family can be your greatest danger. That trust has to be earned, not assumed. That your gut instinct is usually right, even when everyone else says you're wrong. 6 months ago, I got a letter from Patricia, from prison. It was exactly what you'd expect. No remorse, no apology, just justifications and blame. I was the problem, she wrote. I'd ruined her son's life by refusing to die gracefully. I'd destroyed a family with my selfishness. I'd taken a mother away from her son over a misunderstanding. I read it once, laughed bitterly, and threw it away. Some people will never accept responsibility for their actions. Some people will die believing they were the hero of their own story, even when they were actually the villain. Patricia is one of those people. And honestly, that's her burden to carry, not mine. David wrote too, multiple times. Those letters were different, full of apologies and excuses and attempts at explanation. He'd been under his mother's influence his whole life, he wrote. He'd made terrible choices. He'd never actually wanted me dead. He just wanted to be free. He'd convinced himself it wasn't really murder if he wasn't the one administering the poison. He'd been weak. He was sorry. He wished he could take it all back. I didn't respond to any of them. What would I even say? Thanks for trying to kill me, but I appreciate the apology. No, some betrayals are beyond forgiveness. Some wounds don't heal. And some people don't deserve your energy, even to tell them off. I did write one letter, though, to Rebecca's son, to be given to him when he's old enough to understand. I told him the truth about his father, not to hurt him, but because he deserves to know, to learn from it, to understand that your DNA doesn't define you, that you get to choose who you become. I told him about courage and justice and standing up for yourself. I told him his mother is one of the bravest women I know, raising him alone, refusing to let David's legacy poison his future. I told him that victims can become survivors, and survivors can become warriors, and warriors can change the world. So here's what I want to say to anyone watching this who's ever felt trapped, who's ever been gaslit, who's ever thought they were crazy when they were actually being abused. Trust yourself. Trust that instinct that says something's wrong, even when everyone else says you're paranoid. Document everything. Tell people. Reach out. Don't suffer in silence because you're afraid of seeming dramatic or causing problems. Your life is worth fighting for. Your sanity is worth protecting. And the people who claim to love you while hurting you, they don't deserve your loyalty. And if you're being poisoned, literally or metaphorically, by the people who should protect you, fight back, gather evidence, build your case. Don't confront them until you're ready, until you're strong, until you have backup and proof and a way out. Be strategic, be smart, be ruthless if you have to be, because they won't show you mercy, and you don't owe them any either. You owe yourself survival. You owe yourself justice. You owe yourself the chance to build a life on the other side of their abuse. It's been 14 months since that hospital bed. 14 months since Patricia whispered those words that changed everything. And you know what the doctor who treated me that day told me later. He said my potassium levels were so dangerously low. I was probably hours away from cardiac arrest when I collapsed. Hours. If I'd waited one more day to go to the hospital, I'd likely be dead. If I hadn't figured out what they were doing, if I hadn't stopped drinking those teas and smoothies, if I hadn't fought back, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't exist anymore. I'd be a tragic story. The young woman who died of a mysterious illness, mourned by her loving husband and devoted mother-in-law, forgotten within a year. But I am here. I'm alive. I'm free. And I'm telling my story because someone else needs to hear it. Someone else is being slowly poisoned, literally or figuratively, by people they trust. Someone else is being gaslit and manipulated and isolated. Someone else is wondering if they're crazy, if they're the problem, if they deserve what's happening to them. And I need them to know, you're not crazy. You don't deserve it. And you can survive this. You can fight back. You can win. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. You'll lose things, people, relationships, the life you thought you'd have, but you'll gain something more important. Yourself, your power, your future. Patricia was right about one thing in that hospital room. I am gone. The woman she tried to destroy, the woman who trusted her, the woman who would have died quietly to avoid making a scene. That Sarah is gone, dead and buried, and in her place stands someone Patricia never saw coming, someone who refused to be a victim, who turned her pain into power, who exposed the truth, no matter the cost, someone who's not afraid anymore, not of poisoned tea, not of powerful families, not of being called crazy or difficult or vindictive, someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle for anything less than the life she deserves. So thank you, Patricia, for that whisper in the hospital. Thank you for showing me exactly who you were. Thank you for underestimating me. Because that moment, that cold, calculated, cruel moment, was the moment I stopped being your victim and started being your downfall. That was the moment I decided to survive, no matter what it took. And look at us now. You're in prison. I'm in Seattle with my 3-legged dog and my hard-won peace. You lost everything. I gained myself. I'd say I won this game. But it was never really a game, was it? It was my life, my actual, irreplaceable life, and I'm still here to live it. To everyone listening, stay until the end, because I'm about to tell you the one thing every victim needs to hear. The thing I wish someone had told me when I was lying in that hospital bed, weak and scared and alone. The thing that might have saved me months of suffering. The thing that might save you right now. You don't have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you. You don't have to earn basic human decency from people who've already decided you're expendable. You don't have to be perfect to deserve protection. You don't have to have all the evidence before you leave. You don't have to stay because you're afraid of being alone or starting over or losing the life you built. Because a life that requires your silence about your own pain isn't a life worth keeping. A family that asks you to die for their comfort isn't a family worth saving. And love that poisons you slowly isn't love at all. It's murder dressed in pretty words, and Sunday dinners, and I'm just trying to help, sweetheart. Trust your body. Trust your instincts. Trust that voice inside that says something is wrong, even when you can't articulate what it is. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough, when you have just enough evidence and just enough support, fight back. Not for revenge, not for justice, though that might come too. Fight back for the most important reason of all, because you deserve to live, fully, freely, without poison in your tea and malice in your home. You deserve to be safe, and sometimes, to get there, you have to become dangerous to the people who never thought you would fight back. So fight, survive, win, and when you do, when you're standing on the other side of hell, having walked through fire to get there, remember, you are so much stronger than anyone who tried to destroy you ever wanted you to know. And that strength, that's yours forever. Nobody can take it away. Not with poison, not with lies, not with anything. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 33 years old now, and I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting, still winning. And if you're listening to this while someone's trying to destroy you, you can be too. I promise you, you can survive this. And on the other side of survival is a life so much better than anything you had before. A life built on truth and strength and the unshakable knowledge that you saved yourself. That's the life I'm living now, and it's worth everything it cost to get here.